Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم أجمعين أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, welcome to day one to the Arabic tryouts. And even though, although we have another project which we call the Arabic tryouts, which is kind of a little bit different from this, but we would use this same name to begin our lessons that we would teach the Arabic language. And this would not be a complete course, but this will be like a beginning course to give you guys a little insight into how one begin to learn the Arabic language. Okay? If you're familiar, we did a video on why haven't I learned the Arabic, right? And we explained some of the obstacles and some of the things that prevents us from learning the Arabic language. Hopefully today, in day one, the Arabic tryouts, we will learn some things, inshallah ta'ala, for those who are at the beginning stage, okay? For those who are at the very beginning stage, how do I tackle learning the Arabic language, okay? So what we like to do is, one, you have to understand that the Arabic alphabets themselves, they need to be pronounced correctly. So there is something which is known, okay, as far as they call it the ilm tajweed, when it deals with the correct pronunciation and the points of articulation where those letters can be found. The Arabic letters themselves are divided within 5 main areas that you're going to use, okay? All right, and we're going to talk about those 5 areas which you use that the Arabic language is to be recited from. So what I like to do is I like to actually teach you some of them side by side, not tajweed in and of itself, because that's a whole course within and of itself, and it has its own rules and things like that, but just the point of articulation, so that when you learn the letter, you'll know how to sound the letter, pronounce the letter, etc. All right. So not as far as learning tajweed as a whole. That's not the point of that. That we put them together. Now, okay. So if you look, there are 17 points, or they say makharij is the plural word for makhraj, which means points of articulation. There are 17 points or source for where a letter come from, okay? There are 17. However, they have been spread out within these 5 main areas, okay? And we're going to talk about those 5 main areas briefly. So remember we said that what? There are 17 source or points of articulation where a letter come from, okay? The number is 17, makharij, okay? Okay, this is the plural for the word. Makharij is the plural for the word makhraj, but however, not to get confused and not to be too technical, we're just going to say source, all right? And if you remember the video, points of articulation, okay? So, where the letters come from, 17. The jawf is known as the emptiness within the mouth to the end of the throat, all right? They call it the emptiness within the mouth to the end of the throat, okay? The throat, the emptiness in the mouth to the end of the throat. This is jawf, okay? The mouth to the end of the throat, okay? Should be throat. You get what I'm saying, all right? So, lisan is tongue. Al-halq is throat. Al-shafatain, lips. Al-khayshun, base, they say nasal, butt, nose. Al-anf. Okay, 17 points of articulation is going to be spread out in these 5 main ones. Okay, so when you look at it, Al Jof have 1 harf. Okay, 1. Al Lisan, all right, 10. And so that we know, Al Halq, 3. Shafatain, 2. Al Khayshun, 1. Okay. When you add those numbers up, you're going to get 17 points of articulation. All right. So the letters is going to come from that. We're not going to go into detail to all of this. Again, we're going to start from the beginning, not to get technical, not to be advanced. But this is just to give you a brief understanding that we're connecting the two so that you'll know how to pronounce the letter from the beginning when you're learning the Arabic alphabets, okay? Now, the Arabic alphabets themselves. So since we covered this, okay, you can rewind the video, go back, and actually take the pointers so that you can write them down if you want to have for your notes, okay? There are 17 points of articulation, so source, and that there are 5 main components you're going to find. So each of these parts of your body, each of these parts you're going to be using to pronounce the Arabic letters. So either it's going to be from the emptiness of your mouth to the end of your throat, which we're going to talk about today, the first letter we're going to learn, or it's going to be from the tongue. So a letter can come from the tongue, and to get complicated with that, there are 10 letters that the tongue plays as a point or a source for those letters. And then you have what we call the halq, which is the throat itself. And there are 3 positions. And to get technical, there are 3 positions of the throat, but there are 3 letters that come from the throat. All right. And then you have what we call the actual shafatain, which is your lips. And there are 2 letters that come from your lips. And then we have what we call is the khayshun, which is the nasal passages. And there's 1 main letter that comes from there. All right. Now, moving on. What makes any one of us become successful in studying any subject, all right? And since we're talking about Arabic here, it's going to be certain key things you're going to need, such as the sincerity of your intentions. Why are you doing it, okay? That's main important. Always keep that at your mind, okay? Sincerity of intentions is important because it's going to help you out with consistency. The other issue you want to look at is focus, okay? Focus, tartakis. How do you become focused? See, a lot of individuals, they always say, I need a tutor, or I need to learn hands-on, or I need to be such and such, right? It's as if they're putting all of the weight and the responsibility on the mudarris, on the teacher. And they want the teacher to somehow give them the focus they need. No, the discipline and the focus, you have to have that yourself, okay? You have to be focused enough to say, okay, this is where I have to show up at. Okay, I have to be focused on the subject. The teacher is going to give you what? The teacher responsibility is provided to give you the explanation, the principles, the format, and the structure. You see? So once you begin to get all of that from the teacher, you should focus. Focus is a main component of you becoming successful in learning anything. So you want to make sure that you focus. So the stuff that we're going to talk about today that you're going to learn, trust me, if you were to apply this and you were just to learn by yourself, you would still be able to carry it on if you have these main ingredients. Okay. So moving on next, we talked about the 7 points of articulation. We covered that, and we break them down in 5 main areas. The first letter of the Arabic alphabet fall under the first one we mentioned, which was called al-jof. And what did we say al-jof was? The emptiness of the mouth to the end of the throat. Okay, the air that flows out. The first letter of the Arabic alphabet is Aleph. Okay, there are some things you need to know, such as 1, the Arabic alphabet, unlike the English that we are used to, is written from the right, to the left, and not from the left to the right. Okay? And you might say, brother, why are you telling us this? This is not kitaba. This is not a writing class, right? No. What I like to do is when I teach, I like to give you a lot of different things coupled with one so that you're getting the maximum benefit. So you're not just learning the letter, you're also learning how to pronounce the letter. You're not just learning the letter, you're also learning how to write the letter. So you're going to be getting all of that in one as we be teaching, inshallah, so you can actually maximize. I'm not giving you the principles of writing. That's imla. We're not getting to that. It's a little bit advanced. But still here, I'm just going to give you the basic components, okay? So Arabic starts from right to left, as we see here in Al-Jof, not left from right, which English start with. Another thing you need to know that there are 28 letters in the Arabic alphabet. How many letters are there? 28. There is a dispute amongst the teachers or the scholars of Arabic, which they call them grammarians, where they argue whether or not the Hamza can be a letter by itself, and it would gives us 29. However, the opinion that I favor and the opinion that I normally goes with, that there are only 28 letters in the Arabic alphabet, okay? How many letters are there? 28 letters altogether, all right? Now, it's important to know, okay, out of those 28 letters, okay, there are going to be some rules that you're going to learn with those letters as we go along. So today we're learning Aleph, okay? That's our first letter. There are main things you need to know about Aleph, okay? Aleph is just a line. One line. That's it. And it is how his name is, Aleph. Aleph by itself does not make a sound. Okay? Let's repeat that. Aleph by itself does not make a sound. There is no sound for Aleph. But Aleph does come from the Jof, okay? The emptiness of the mouth, that ear, back of the throat, okay? As you're going to see, there are other letters that are similar. But however, know that no letter can share the same. In other words, I'm saying different from share the same part of makhraj you're going to find like this. No, you're not going to find 2 or 3 letters or 4 letters, 2 letters actually sharing. No, that's not how it's going to work. So each one is going to have that source, okay? Now, so Aleph is a line. Now, it doesn't have a sound. So the question you're going to ask is, how do we give Aleph a sound? That's when we're going to learn something else different, which is called the Hamza, okay, where Aleph now behaves as a seat for the Hamza, okay? So when we talk about Jof, that one letter that comes from the emptiness of the mouth is Aleph, but there are 3, okay? And that's where we're going to learn a little bit of Hamza today, all right? So Hamza, you might see written like this, okay? That's known as a Hamza. However, it does not come from the Jof. Hamza comes from the halq. It comes from the throat, okay? It does not come from the Jof. It comes from the throat, but we're just bringing a point here. Hamza is going to be written multiple different ways. You're going to see it written multiple different ways. Do never get confused, okay? So we have Aleph, and then you might see this. So we have Aleph, and then you see another Aleph with a Hamza on top, all right? Or you might see a Waw with a Sukoon, right? Or Hamza, okay? You have a Ya, Sukoon, right? Or you have Hamza written by itself. Okay, so you have multiple different ways. None of these, this is not a Ya, this is not a Waw, this is not a Hamza. I know for those who don't even know the Arabic alphabet, you're like, why is I moving too fast? No. These are all Hamza. The point is this, is that you never want to get this confused. The difference between the Aleph and the difference between this letter here is that the Aleph here, okay, And this is a hamza. This is not called an aleph. You see an aleph there, but that's not an aleph. Don't ever get it confused. Whenever you see this sign over top of it, this symbol over top of that, this no longer becomes an aleph. Just X that out. It becomes hamza. The aleph now works as a purpose of a seat. Okay? But when you see it by itself, it's an aleph. There are rules you need to know with aleph, okay, that you're going to learn. All right? The basic rule you need to know is that aleph do not come at the beginning of a word. Aleph does not have a beginning form. Okay? And that's something we're going to talk about. There are different forms to each letter. Okay? All right? Sometimes a letter might have 3 forms, 4 if you count as independent form. But when we say 3 forms, meaning it might have a beginning form, a middle form, and an ending form. Okay? However, aleph does not have a beginning form. One of the rules is that it can never start at the beginning of a word. But it does have an independent form and a middle form and an ending form. Okay, let's show you an example. If we look at the word qala, where's our aleph in this word? It's in the middle, right? That's our middle form. So it can work in the middle, okay? It still comes from the jof, all right? Qala, okay? But the aleph is in the middle, all right? Let's show an example where the form can be at the end. Can never be in the beginning. At the end, you might see in the word, let's say, all right, that's a lam aleph. The aleph is here though. This is the end aleph here. You might see it in the end. So it can be in the middle and the end. All right? So, aleph never begins at the beginning. It does not have a beginning form. Aleph does not have a beginning form. It has a middle and an ending form. Now, the beautiful part about all of this, where do you get the benefit of this? One, you have to know how to take good notes. All right? So whenever you hear the teacher talk about key points, such as a rule, you will know a rule. When it says there, all right, it doesn't have a beginning form. You will know for a fact you have to lock that in. All right? Because that's a rule. Now you will never make the mistake of putting aleph in the beginning of a word. That's unlike hamza. And we didn't get to hamza yet, but that's unlike hamza. In order for aleph to go in front of a word, it's no longer aleph have to serve as a seat for the hamza. Okay? Now, that's a rule you want to lock in. So your notes, you know you're going to lock that in. Key point says how many letters in the Arabic alphabet? 28. You want to write that down. Okay? How many forms do aleph take? It has a middle form and it has an ending form. Okay? Middle form and ending form, where you're going to see it at. These are key points that you want to lock down, okay, in your notes. All right, so we talked about the aleph, all right, by itself, that it does not have a sound. Another thing that you want to write down, aleph by itself does not have a sound. Simple. How do you lock in aleph? The most easiest letter in the Arabic alphabet will be aleph. That's the most easiest letter. I mean, you probably don't even have to write it down. Even though the format I'm going to give you, you probably don't have to write it down 10, 20, 25, 80 times. I mean, you can memorize it today. Just that simple. Aleph, that's the beginning letter, right? The name of it is aleph. It doesn't have a sound. Clear, right? But there are some other letters where you might not get them so fast. So you might have to do a format. I'm going to show you what to do, all right? To help you with your writing as well as help you with memorizing the alphabets themselves. Type. So we got aleph, right? We didn't go to the next letter yet. Now, some of the key things that we need, being non-Arabs, is that we need exercises so that we remember what these things are. So what I like to do is, as Sheikh Mukbil mentioned, rahmatullah ta'ala alayhi, is that the beginning students should focus only on two things: Arabic and Quran. They go hand in hand. Arabic is the mother. Okay, I mean Quran is the mother of Arabic. In other words, it means the classical Arabic. So what you do is you always work between them both. All right? People ask a lot of questions. How do I improve my reading skill? How do I improve this? You can do it with the Quran. Open your book. Whenever you're learning an Arabic course or whatever, open the Quran. Go to the Arabic side. Okay? Today we're talking about Aleph. You can go right now and do an exercise when you open the Quran and look for Aleph. All right? If you don't want to write in your Quran, you can point out the word. You might don't even know the whole full word, but you know when to spot an Aleph. Okay? And this is how you start to identify. And you're going to see when within the Arabic, in the Quran, because sometimes there are different strips. Okay, I advise you to stick with the Uthmani strip for now because the way that it's written is clear enough for you to see. Okay, the Pakistani strip can be a little bit difficult if you don't know how certain things is written. They write the sukoons a little bit different than we know of a sukoon being circled, but sometimes you might see a sukoon like this. All right, and sometimes you might see a yeah without any dots. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the strips, then I will stick with the Uthmani script. And normally the noble Quran that you have, that's what you see. The Arabic side is Uthmani. Okay, that's the Uthmani script. Arabic is kind of clear, crisp, but that you can get it. Okay, so now when you go into the Quran, you're going to look and you're going to point out Aleph. Your exercise 1 is you're going to write Aleph down 25 times. How many times? 25 times you're going to write Aleph down. So you need a notebook. Write Aleph down. Say it while you're writing it. Aleph. Aleph. Right? That's 1. 2, you're going to write down the rules to Aleph. Aleph does not have a beginning form. Aleph does not make a sound. Okay? It's important that you know this. Aleph has a middle and an ending form. It does not have a beginning form. Okay? It does not make a sound. It has a middle and an ending form. You will know this. How do you pronounce Aleph? Because you know where it comes from. Where do Aleph come from? The Jawf. What is the Jawf? Emptiness of the mouth to the end of the throat. Ear. Okay? Aleph. Okay? Now, also, when we get a little bit advanced in our Arabic tryouts, when we start going over the vowels, I don't want you to be confused because Aleph is also a vowel. All right? Aleph is also a vowel. It becomes part of the huruf. All right? So, I don't want you, and it's used for elongation. Okay? Now, another rule you're going to learn, and that's going to be when we get to the vowels, but another rule you're going to learn with Aleph is that Aleph is always going to be sakin, and the letter that precedes it is going to be mutaharrik, but with a fatha, meaning it's going to be maftuha. In other words, it's going to take a fatha. You will never find a dhamma or a kasra preceding an Aleph. That can never happen. All right? And you might say, okay, brother, I don't want to get confused. I don't know what you mean. I don't know what a kasra is, and I don't know what a dhamma is. Okay, that's good. When we get to that point in the Arabic tryouts, inshallah ta'ala, you will learn. My objective to do this is to get us at the beginning, knowing the Arabic alphabets, knowing the vowels, the different symbols, etc. Then I'm going to stop because I have courses which you can get in if you want to learn more. But I'm not going to go and delve in. I might do only one class of grammar, inshallah, where I might break down the grammar similar like this. We're beginning class, but this right now is starting at the very fundamental. So this is day 1 of the Arabic tryouts. Let's do a recap, inshallah ta'ala, and then we'll be done. Okay, 1, we covered the different points of articulations. The Arabic letters need to come from somewhere. So they come from 5 main areas, okay? And there are 17 sources or points of articulation, which is known as makharij, plural for the word makhraj. All right? Those 17 are not equally, but they are distribute out of the five main areas: al-jawf, al-lisan, al-halq, al-shafatain, and we call the last one al-khayshun. So al-jawf is the emptiness of the mouth to the end of the throat. The lisan is the tongue. The halq is the throat. The shafatain is the lips. And then you have what we call the khayshun is the nose, okay, or the nasal passage. 17 letters are distributed throughout those five main things that we just mentioned as a recap. So the jawf going to have 1, the emptiness of the mouth. The lisan have 10 letters. And then we learned that the halq, the throat, have how many? 3 letters. And we also learned that the shafatain has 2. And we learned that the khayshun has 1. That equals, when you put all of them together, equals up to 17. Okay? So that's important. Why did we mention that? It's because you want to know how to properly pronounce the letter you're learning. Okay? You want to know how to properly pronounce the letter you are learning. So if you learn ba or you learn ta, you want to know how to correctly say it. Okay? So a part of learning how to correctly say it is knowing where it comes from. So that's the point of us putting it. It's not to give you a tajweed lesson. All right? That's a little bit more advanced when we go heavy into tajweed. We're not going to do that. We're only going to give us the point of articulation, inshallah. So the second point is that we learned that Aleph is the first letter of the Arabic alphabet, and that the Arabic alphabets have 28 letters, not 29, even though there's a dispute, but it's 28 letters, okay? And the beginning of those letters is Aleph. And the Aleph is only a line, okay? It's just a line. And its rule is that it does not make a sound. The second rule is that it does not have a beginning form. So it doesn't make a sound and it doesn't have a beginning form. That's the 2 rules we need to know with Aleph, all right? Also, to not get confused, whenever we want to see an example of sound, then there is something called the hamza, and it's written multiple ways, as I still left on the board. The hamza is written multiple ways. Do not get it confused. If you see a line with a hamza on top, that is not Aleph. Do not call it Aleph. Just ignore it. Just like how we have in English, there are silent letters. Okay, like the I or I before E, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's silent. So even though you see it there, you don't pronounce it. That's the same thing here. Even though you see an Aleph, you ignore it because it's not going to be pronounced. All right. So now you don't call this a Aleph here. You call this a Hamza. All right. The Aleph is serving as a seat. So I don't want you to get confused, because when you open your Mus'haf or you open your Quran, you're going to be looking for Aleph. Whenever you see something that looks like this, don't call it an Aleph. You didn't spot the Aleph. If you see, for example, something like this, that's an Aleph. Something like this, that's an Aleph. All right? Okay? But when you see something like that, that's not an Aleph. Or like this, with a Ya, that's not a Ya neither. That's a Hamza. The Ya becomes silent. The Waw, that's not a Waw. The Waw becomes silent. Okay? All of them are Hamza. And they're for written purposes, and that's advanced. We're not talking about writing. When you learn about Imla, you'll know the reason why it turns to a Waw, why it turns to a Ya. That's different, okay? We're not into that. We're talking about the learning of the Arabic alphabet. As far as the beginning letter is Aleph, okay? So these are the things you want to lock down. It has a middle and an ending form. Now, what you can do is you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak, by learning multiple things at one time. So when you begin to write these down, 25 times write down the word Aleph, right? What are you learning here? You're learning how to write, right? So you don't have to take a separate course after learning the Arabic alphabet to go writing, because you're going to be writing from the beginning. You understand? So you're going to be learning both of those things together. And I think that's the beauty of it, inshallah ta'ala. If you have any questions to pertaining to what we went over today for day 1 of Arabic Tryouts, you can, inshallah ta'ala, leave them up in the comment sections. Hopefully we'll try to answer to the best of our abilities, but this is what we were able to bring today, inshallah ta'ala, for the Arabic Tryouts. Anything that we left off, trust me, we're only human, so perfection is only with Allah Jalla wa Ala. I know there are many other things that we could have said, but I think this is suffice for us to learn the beginning letter of the Arabic alphabet. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakallahu khairan.